This is In the Weeds podcast. It's a podcast about landscapes, how they function, what they support, and why they matter. In the Weeds goes below the surface, hosted by the Nicoles behind Larkspur Landscaping in Colorado. We explore native plants, pollinators, and the gardens that sustain them for those who garden, design, or are simply paying closer attention. This is a conversation about how we live and what we choose to cultivate. A discussion about living landscapes in a dry place is very
timely.
It's timely.
All right. Well, let's do it.
How are you doing today?
I was going to talk about something stupid, like handling the swing between AC and heat at my home right now.
Or in my car.
Yeah, or in your car. So cold, so hot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been tough. This episode, I guess, isn't about using less water. I think it's more about, the better question is, like, what should we be growing here instead?
And why do we choose this topic today?
Because we live in Colorado. We have had the craziest winter. We're not historic drought, but we're pretty close. I think the snowpack, the last I saw, was 22% of median.
That's so crazy.
It's so bad. We're starting to see water restrictions. We've had a lot of clients reaching out to say, hey, is this the right time to plant?
Should we hold off until fall? Should we wait until next year? And the kind of sad part of the uncertainty of it all is, like, is it just going to keep getting worse?
Mm-hmm.
Year after year? Is it just going to be drier and drier and drier? And for those people that do choose to wait, is there ever going to be a perfect time?
Right. Yeah, because I don't think it's about water use right now. I think it's about rethinking what our landscapes are actually for.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have lots of crazy facts in here. I can't wait to share.
We do have a lot of crazy facts.
All right.
So, yeah, as I said earlier, the snowpack, 22% of median, and why that is so bad for us is because that snow melt is what feeds our reservoirs. It's what recharges them. So it also shapes how our landscapes perform. And as water becomes more limited, what we choose to plant, even how we choose to design that space, it really starts to matter a lot more. So should we chat drought?
God. Yeah, we should chat drought.
Yeah.
So what does drought look like? I mean, we all know about the browning of the grass. I mean, this is like one thing we've heard, one thing that we've seen. I mean, I know you're training for a marathon right now, which is not atypical. And you talk all the time about running past properties, especially properties that were recently for sale, and just seeing dead brown squares on the front.
Or green grass, which I know you're watering your lawn when you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
We see you.
Yeah. So drought can look like dead grass. I feel like that's probably a common thing. What may surprise you, though, is, and this is the part that really like tugs at my heartstrings because I love trees so much. The Secret Life of Trees. If anyone wants a good book, it's incredible. I spent some time with Mike from Patriot Tree the other day at my property trying to figure out, and get a sense of the tree health, because my husband and I bought our place about 3 years ago. And I know what the trees are, but I, have just taken the Colorado Master Gardener class, and there's so much to know. So one of the things, or really important takeaways that we'd love to just share with everybody is, drought in trees doesn't look like an immediate shift to like brown leaves and the tree dies. I mean, I'm sure everybody has just been driving around and looking in the medians and seeing these trees that clearly have no life left. Or trees with those little plastic watering bags at the base that have been forgotten about. And it's very sad. So what drought looks like in trees is years,
Mm-hmm.
the downstream impact of low water or no water. Trees become more susceptible to disease when there's drought. One cool thing that I learned, specifically, we were talking about an Austrian pine, which is not a native species to Colorado, but is very common. Borers are a huge issue with trees in Colorado. I'm sure people have heard of the emerald ash borer for the ash trees. And as a response to these borers, trees use their sap to push out or trap these insects. And when there's no water, there's no available sap to use to actually push out these insects or trap them or kill them. So trees are just going to be more susceptible to all of these things if they're not supplementally watered. And so there is a measurement based on the width, the diameter of your tree trunk, but generally speaking, trees need about 16 gallons of supplemental water every 3 weeks. So for those of you that are looking at your lawn, kind of lamenting the lack of green, please also think about your trees. I know there are trees blooming right now. The crab apples are blooming. The plums are blooming. My peach tree bloomed incredibly early this year. And it may look like they're healthy and it just may look like they're fine. But please do try to consider supplementally watering your trees every 3 weeks, 16 gallons, a slow drip. It's going to make a huge difference and prevent some of these negative downstream impacts of drought.
And by the time a tree looks like it's dying, it's already been under pressure for so many years. So we're not going to see the decline of this season in a tree probably until, I don't know, would you say year 3, 4, 5?
I have a tree on my property that is, it's got a fungus infestation. And I was told that the best treatment is supplemental water. The estimate is that this tree will still be there 10 years from now, but what does it look like in decline? One branch goes, another branch goes, all of a sudden the canopy is like all over the place, So definitely something to keep an eye on, and please take care of your trees out there. They're pretty critical for our landscape.
Yes. And if you have to choose between watering, please don't water your lawn. Please water your trees.
Well, let's talk about why watering your lawn is such a waste.
Lawns demand an extraordinary amount of water. And in dry regions like ours, outdoor irrigation, I believe it's somewhere between like 50-60% of water use.
A disproportionate amount of which is lawn, right?
Lawn, yeah.
Why are lawns so thirsty?
So like a Kentucky Bluegrass lawn, right? It's not a native grass to this area. And they have very shallow roots. So they require constant input of water and fertilizing and time and gasoline and all of the things. And what do they give back to us?
What do they give back to us?
I mean, I will say that there is something to be said for like a nice little spot of grass in the backyard to like lay and have picnics with your children and, soccer fields, that kind of stuff. But I think non-essential turf is what we're really talking about here when you have such a grand space of lawn. But yeah, lawns don't support pollinators. They don't provide meaningful habitat. I hate to say that, but they're the largest irrigated crop in America. They're essentially like aesthetic wheat. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, we're not trying to hate lawns here. There definitely is a place for them. It's better than bare dirt. They do kind of
for sure
marginally cool the environment. When you're thinking about a concrete pad versus grass, obviously grass is better. But even just think about the amount of evaporation that happens when, your lawn is being watered. And this is, of course, like if you're watering your lawn during the day, check minus for you. Please don't do that. You should be watering after sunset or before dawn, or right around dawn so that there's less, loss to evaporation. But really what we're getting at here is there are better choices to make. And especially coming into this climate of extreme drought and, what promises to be more drought, continued over time, this aridification that you're talking about. We can make better choices, and we can make choices that are going to positively impact the ecosystems around us.
So I think instead of asking like, how are we keeping these lawns alive? Like, oh no, I only can water 2 days a week. What actually makes sense to grow here? We're kind of dealing with two major issues at the same time, right? We have the climate is shifting, and we have biodiversity loss, and they're connected. They're very deeply connected. So I think, the larger question is we kind of treated conservation as something that happens like in the national parks or this little pollinator pocket garden or, the work that Friends of Coal Creek are doing along the Coal Creek paths or the watershed, the botanical gardens. Yeah. They're places that are kind of removed from everyday life, and those spaces, it's just not enough anymore. We've isolated nature into these little fragmented pockets, and conservation's not happening there anymore. It needs to happen right outside of our front door, right? It needs to happen in our backyards and in our neighborhoods. And I will say, like, as I see people shift their gardens from these, especially the front lawns,
monoculture,
the monoculture, once one neighbor makes the change, it definitely inspires other people in the neighborhood to do the same thing. You know, you start to see these gardens popping up, and when I'm running around the neighborhood, all of a sudden I'll see like 4 in a row, and I'm like, okay, they're clearly inspiring each other, you know? So I think, you know, when you look at how much land is privately owned in the US, it's like above 80% of land is privately owned. And to give you context, so like Texas, I think is like above 95% privately owned land.
That's insane.
Alaska.
So if those people don't make better choices,
yes,
you know,
please Texas, if you're listening.
Make good choices,
Make good
Texas.
choices. Alaska, I think, is like 2 to 3% is privately owned, and Colorado is 60%. I think we rank like 10th for privately owned. So what that means the future of biodiversity, I mean, it really depends on what we choose to do with this land, right?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about habitat loss, specifically what happens when we do build these little islands, you know, and when people don't really take this concept of conservation into their own hands. Because in my own life, I know, gardens aside, you know, I think people are making a big shift towards investing in things that matter, right? Like spending on B Corps versus other types of companies, or trying to buy locally made products, or, you know, made in the USA products and things like that. And I think similarly, when you learn about the kind of bystander effect of, you know, what's happening in our environment, and the fact that, you know, a lot of it is caused by humans and the way that we live, and the needs that we have, and, you know, the importance that people have placed on certain things. When you start to learn about the impact that this has, and the decline of, you know, ecosystems and habitats, and the loss of entire species, you know, of beings, it's really, you know, you're kind of faced with, do I make a change, and how can I make a change? Because the reality is, you can walk outside your door and by this afternoon have made a shift for your little pocket of the world.
Mm-hmm. And if you really want to get radicalized, you need to listen to Benjamin Vogt of Prairie Up. He will talk to you about human supremacy, which is a very interesting concept of, it's just, we matter more than the insects and the plants so yeah, he goes into the weeds with that, and I love Benjamin. But yeah, I think, you know, landscapes aren't neutral. They're either supporting life or they're not, right? There's kind of no in between. And I think, you know, supporting life and water and creating habitat, design kind of determines, like, the intention of how we plant determines what's happening.
So what happens when there's like one amazing pollinator garden and nothing around it?
That is a pocket, right? And so we're looking to create wildlife corridors. We're looking to create attached pieces of property. And this is where, yeah, the plant selection becomes really critical, right? Like we're talking about, so there's native plants, or plants that have evolved to grow on this land. And then we have keystone plants that are a small subspecies of that group of plants. And those keystone plants are extremely important to our communities and our little wildlife pockets that we're talking about. Yeah, I think a lot of the non-native plants, going back to the keystone plants a little bit, the non-native plants, they're ecological dead ends, right? So they're just not providing what our insects need. They look good.
Just because there's a flower doesn't mean it's actually either supporting pollinators or beneficial to the ecosystem. Like
Correct.
Forsythia, I'm sure everybody is seeing blooming right now, probably a little bit earlier than it should.
Mm-hmm.
It's quiet. You can sit and watch a Forsythia and you're not going to see any bees or anything near it because the flowers are sterile.
Yeah.
Right. So while it's, you know, ornamentally something that's beautiful to look at and, you know, is definitely a sign of spring, there are more beneficial options out there that I think can really make a difference.
Not all insects can use all plants, and that this is also getting a little bit in the weeds.
That's
but
okay.
We have the generalist insects and we have the specialist insects. And the specialist insects are It's a good example. Monarchs and the milkweed. If you take the milkweed away, the monarchs disappear. Why? Because that's their host plant. That is the only plant that their caterpillars can eat. And so, we look at the monarchs, their populations have been declining like crazy for years. We're just starting to see an uptick on the eastern monarchs, which is so awesome. And that's because it's directly tied to people planting milkweed in their garden. They've done these huge campaigns around it, and it's making a difference. They're coming back. I think I saw like 64% increase in the eastern monarch population.
Yep.
Well done.
Well done, everybody who is pulling for them.
Well done. But yeah, it's a clear example that our plant choice, those individual plant choices, it shifts. It can make an immediate shift in how your yard
functions.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about drought, the impact to trees, the downstream impact, because I love trees so much, and I show my son that I hug trees because I want him to also love trees and nature. Denver has already issued water restrictions, watering 2 times a week and on specific days. They are offering exemptions for newly planted gardens, though. We talk to a lot of people that are like, yeah, I want to add lawn. I think I want to just like pull out this old, this old bumpy lawn, which is probably because of the earthworms, and kind of level it and just put new turf. This is not the year to do it.
No.
I mean, our argument is that there is no year to do it.
No.
We can make better options. So, water restrictions, watering 2 days a week. What does this actually lend itself to really well?
Native plants.
All right, let's talk more about it.
So native plants, they do require water to get established, but the difference between them and like a Kentucky bluegrass lawn is the roots, right? So we were chatting earlier about like a lead plant. The roots of a lead plant go down 15 feet. Blue grama grass, that's Colorado state grass. Their roots go down, I think it's like 6.5 feet. Yeah. Most of the grasses are crazy. I mean, between 6 to 15 feet, I would say, are like native plants. So that's why they're better with water, right? So they're deep systems. It creates long-term stability versus these shallow root systems that are just like soaking up the water and not going anywhere with it. So when you're getting a native plant garden established, you got year 1, you've got year 2, where you're watering kind of 10 to 20 inches versus, what would you say like grass takes for that establishment
Wasn't it
period?
40 to 60 inches?
It's something like that. It's definitely in that range. Yeah. So by year 3, the irrigation is pretty minimal. You're only going to water, like my native plants have been in my garden. I moved in a few years ago. This is year 3. I gave a couple a sip this winter
So with good, I think, planning and plant combinations, you can have a garden that is going to thrive on little to no water by, I would even say like after 1 season, things get established. So last season we did an install for the city of Boulder, right? Boulder Recycling, who wanted a native plant garden to use as kind of like a test garden for field trips and things like that. Pollinator garden to show the diversity of bees. In Colorado,
prairie section of some of the.
We did, and we were challenged, right? Because based on a whole bunch of different factors, the actual install didn't happen until like September, right? And the city of Boulder turns off its supplemental irrigation really early. So we put in all these native plants. We didn't even have, I think maybe we had like 2 weeks to get them established, before things shut off. And anyone who was living in Colorado at the end of last season knows we had the longest like Indian summer ever, right? It was just like really warm for a long time until, well, actually we didn't really have a winter until it got really cold for 2 days and then it's back to normal. Yep. But we were just there for an event that they had, which I have a 19-month-old and Nicole has told me about the Lorax, the Dr. Seuss, the Lorax. And I was like, all the trees come back at the end, right? Like they save the trees. And Nicole said, no, they don't. They don't save the trees. There's like,
but they get a seed to plant.
The one truffle a tree seed. How depressing. I laughed. I was like, I teared up a little bit when she was telling me the story, and my son is too young to know, but yeah, it's terrible. Could talk about trees all day. Anyway. Yeah. Long story short,
we were braced for impact. I was nervous to go to that garden because even though they're native, you do need to get them established. So we get there, we do our little garden walk, and
over 90%. I would say.
Well,
I mean, it's
over
still,
90%.
it's still early for certain things. Like some of the grasses haven't, the blue stems
Yeah.
haven't kind of shown themselves yet.
Butterfly weed too is still dormant, but
Yep.
yeah. So, I mean, great case study in native plant gardens with this awful winter before they were even truly established, and they still survived. So it's pretty rad.
Yeah. So when we
If
talk
that had
about
been turf, forget about it.
I mean, you wouldn't be looking at a whole lot of anything
No.
there. But we're really eager to see. I think there's going to be an opening at some point this season, and we're really looking forward to seeing kind of how things take shape.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, though, these water restrictions, watering 2 days a week. I mean, Boulder County is waiting until May to kind of decide what they're going to be doing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we do get some rain to show itself and kind of create a little bit more of a buffer for us. But at the end of the day, if you don't have 2 seasons to get a native plant garden established, it's not really the biggest issue, right? We had 2 weeks to get these plants established, and all of a sudden, like they surprised us all. So the resilience of nature shows itself kind of at every turn, and this is a great example. Mm-hmm. So what do you do if your turf starts to die? I mean, even start thinking about it now before that even becomes a reality. Like you can start removing sections of your lawn. You can start small, right? Planting keystone plants in small groupings, even if it's just like a 5x5 area of your lawn that you're willing to remove, is starting to create those wildlife corridors, is starting to create connections from one landscape to the next, and is already creating a butterfly effect, so to speak, in a positive way for our community out here.
Yeah, and just talking about it too, right? That education piece is huge.
Well, you went to the High Plains Institute this past weekend, right?
I did. So I heard about the High Plains
Fangirling.
Environmental Center, fangirling, on Cultivating Place, which is another amazing garden podcast with Jennifer Jewell. And she interviewed Jim Tolstrup, who was actually on site doing his spring cleanup. And I just couldn't help myself. So I chatted with Jim a little bit, and I was like, Jim, we have some clients that are asking questions like, is this the year to put in a garden? Like, should I wait? And his answer was simple. He's like, now is the time. Like, the sooner we replace these water hungry landscapes with well-adapted plants, the better. So we are moving full force into our planting season, and we're busier than ever. People are like, rip out this lawn.
Yeah. And that's not to say like all ornamentals are off limits. I mean, we're not, purists here, although talk to us again in 5 years, like things could be very different. And so we do try to, for our clients, we do try to design, a garden that is going to feel like a reflection of themselves, but where possible. I mean, you want an English cottage garden in Denver, Colorado, really not the ideal. But you can design something that has a similar look and feel with drought tolerant, native, and well-adapted plants. So these things are possible. Don't feel like, gosh, if you just like hate Agastache, that's your choice or it's nothing, right? There are, there's gray kind of all throughout. You can have an ornamental that really has no ecological value and is just beautiful next to, a keystone plant, and that's fine. That's making steps in the right direction.
Totally. And just to go back to the High Plains Environmental Center, if you are up in the Loveland area, it is such a cool space. So he's basically working to educate, to create these like replicable living laboratories, which demonstrate the restorative effects of putting native gardens into
suburbitats, right?
Suburbitat. That's the name of his book. It's amazing. But examples of land stewardship and native plants and wildlife habitat. He's got really cool demonstration gardens up there. He's got an amazing kids area. The kids were there for 4 hours playing. I could not get them out. So really cool spot. You learn a lot. The visitor center is great. I know they have tons of events going on, and Jim was very gracious to answer my questions after I was pestering him during his spring cleanup.
I would say that this is really, I hope that it's a call to action. I really hope that people are sitting there or driving, by these like dead hell strips on the side of the road, looking at bare soil, or these poor trees that have been impacted by fire blight and are just dead with all of their leaves still on them. Like, these are signs that our environment is struggling, and we can make better choices about what we put in the ground, how we maintain our landscapes. I know it's easy to just call like the lawn guy and have them come and mow. And by the way, for those of you that are just like diehard I'm keeping my lawn. I love my green space. Just tell your lawn guys to mow not below 3 inches, right? That's going to help save water. That's going to ensure that there's fewer weeds. These are cultural management practices that you can use if you do want to keep your lawn.
Mm-hmm.
That said, we're here for you if not. And, you can just look online and say, what are 5 keystone plants for Colorado that I can put in my yard to make a difference today? And come mid-April to around Mother's Day, which is shockingly in this environment that we're in, I know it feels like you should be able to plant tomorrow. And believe me, all of our clients are like, when is my garden going in? When is spring cleanup happening? Which it is happening earlier this year than it has in years past. But, the Farmer's Almanac says the average last frost date is per typical somewhere around Mother's Day in May.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when nurseries are going to be the most full with the highest plant availability. That is where you can find, hopefully some good natives. We want to shout out some places that we work with.
Harlequin Gardens in Boulder, amazing natives. They don't use neonicotinoids. Please ask your nursery if they use neonicotinoids.
Why is that so important?
Because it'll kill the bees. It'll kill the birds that are bringing these seeds back to their nest. It survives in soil for, I think, like 1,000 days or something. It's just try to avoid it. So Harlequins, who else do we love? High Plains Environmental Center also has a great native plant.
Finding Nectar Nursery.
Yep.
Simply
Masa
Bee
Seed
Conservation.
Foundation. Simply Bee Tyler is great. Masa Seed Foundation. They've got some good starters. Those are our favorites.
And you can also grow your own. There's so much more diversity in the quality of the seeds when they are, pulled from plants and nature and, allowed to reseed or cultivated that way versus, typically in nurseries, they're cloning plants. So that's something to consider as well. I mean, gosh, too much information probably for one podcast, but at the end of the day, try to go native where possible.
Yes.
Think about keystone species.
Reduce your lawn.
Now is the time. These water restrictions actually lend themselves to native plants, right?
Yeah.
Native plants like to be watered deeply but infrequently, because if you water native plants like you water grass, you can actually, make them water hungry, right? You can change their needs.
And the future is not artificial turf. It is not plastic
Concrete
grass.
pads.
Or concrete pads. Yeah, that's just exacerbating
the impact?
heat island effect. I think trees, especially, like, we need to think of them as shade infrastructure now. It's really important to kind of reduce the temperature. And
have permeable surfaces, right?
Yep, totally. Yes, please try and avoid concrete if you can. But yeah, the plastic grass, the artificial turf, people think that they're doing good, but
there are a number of alternatives. There's dog tough grass. It does have to be planted using plugs, but it can take over a space pretty rapidly. Buffalo grass. You could even do if you really need a strip of grass for your dog and you're like, gosh, this is just critical for me. You can do a blue grandma grass strip, right? You can seed with native grasses and then just cut them no shorter than 3 inches, but you can cut them and just maintain them versus plastic. Microplastics and all of that stuff. Why are we going to put more plastic into our soil?
And it's going to be in the landfill. It will end up in the landfill eventually.
I see it all over Facebook. Oh gosh, the lawn and the drought. Oh, just put turf in, plastic turf. It's no, why do people think that this is an easy solution? It is just makes no sense to me.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about ecological dead zone.
Seriously, yeah. And then where does it go when it deteriorates? Into the landfills.
Into the landfills, yep. High Country Gardens also has a pretty unique seed mix.
I love High Country Gardens.
Fescue, they're great. High Country Gardens, they have a fescue, yarrow, clover mix that I think we'll probably start experimenting with.
Sod farms, I know you're listening out there somewhere. Please start to create some type of sod that is yarrow and blue grandma and all these native seed mixes in a carpet so people can just unroll it and have a ready-made native drought tolerant lawn if they so choose.
That's beautiful if you don't want to mow it.
Yeah, it turns into
blooms and it's a pretty little meadow.
Exactly. Yep. There's lots of really incredible alternatives out there. So just challenge yourself. Don't be a bystander. Now if you've made it to the end of this podcast, now we are having a really negative impact on our environment if you didn't already know from, other case studies. So it's time, it's time to make a difference. And the amazing thing is you have all the tools you need. If you have a property, if you're a homeowner, if you, have a small little patch, even if it's a patch along the sidewalk, you can do something with it. And we charge you. Do it. Do something. You don't have to hire a landscape designer. You can just go out there, look for native seed mixes, support their establishment, and you'll have beauty and curb appeal and be making a positive impact to the environment and to each other and for your kids, for your friends that have kids.
Yep.
The truffula trees.
The truffula trees. The bright colored tufts
God,
of the truffula trees.
Sad. Danny DeVito, be on our background.
Well, thank you so much for listening to us banter today. We appreciate you listening this far. And yeah, I think a future podcast, we're going to be talking about keystone plants. We're going to be talking about the birds. We're going to be talking about soil. We hope to have some cool guests. We've got some.
Oh, we know so many interesting people that have so much more to say about, they're just looking for an audience. So,
we're going to give them that space. And it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Podcast number 1 in the books. Stay tuned. It'll get better.